Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Cemetery Road Baptist Church, brought to you once again from my office at home. I hope that everyone has had a happy Easter, and I know that we think that Easter was technically last week, and yeah, technically the day was last week, but we're in a time called Eastertide. So I hope that even though you maybe, for those of you with small kids, are still stepping over Easter craft material, finding random eggs around the house, or for those of you who have kind of gone, right, yes, Easter, and gone on with whatever your week looks like in quarantine, that we still pause and go, right, we are still celebrating Easter. So before we go on, as I do with my welcome videos, I'd like you to turn on a light, the flashlight on your phone, or light a candle, electric, or I don't know, old school, I guess is a word, so that we remember to connect with one another. There's nothing magical about this candle. All it means is that we remember one another, that we remember that Christ connects all of us throughout this time. So I know that it's been weeks now since we've met in person, but let's go ahead and take some time to pass the peace to one another prayerfully. This time though, I like you to think about, and maybe you've been doing this all along, not just the people that you see every time that you're in church, but the people that, or rather that you see and welcome and you know by name, but maybe the people that you see or you have a vague memory of seeing and you haven't really had a chance to talk to them yet. Go ahead and think about them and pass the peace to them during this time. So let us take a deep breath to center ourselves and prayerfully pass the peace to one another now. So imagine that it is a bright spring morning and you've come into the church. Still a bit chilly because weather does that, warm one minute, cold the next. Someone's greeted you at the door. You've gone to find your usual spot or an available spot in the church. And you still see some beautiful flowers, the banner over the people saying he is risen. And when you stand to turn and greet people around you, I want you to think about faces that you would normally see and pass the peace to them now. We'll take a few seconds to do that. Amen. So I'd like to challenge you a little bit after that exercise, that for the people you saw and pass the peace to, maybe if you have a chance to this week, pass the peace to them digitally or through a phone call or even a note in the mail. Just to still connect to one another, to still, and maybe again you're already doing this, but just still reach out to one another and love one another during this time. So now that we've welcomed one another across space and time, let's talk about some notices. First of all, I want to thank everyone who came to the Acts Bible study that we did on Zoom this past Wednesday. That was amazing. I know that whether we enjoyed the actual Bible study or not, it was good to see so many people and to be chatting through Zoom. I'm still figuring out the logistics behind it. I use my iPad, so I have a bit of a, I'm sorry this doesn't translate, a Brady Bunch moment because I only get 9 squares. I don't get as many so I have to swipe around, but it was still great to see everyone and see how people are holding up and to pray together and talk about God's word together. What does this mean to look through Acts? And this week we'll be doing Acts 3 and 4. So send me an email or Facebook message the group if you would like to be a part of that, and I'll send you the details. We are going through, as I said, 3 and 4 this week. Another bit that I like to mention is I am exploring how to get materials to everyone. That is, there's some people in the church that are struggling with digital means of worship. So if you know of anyone who could possibly benefit from having sermon notes printed and mailed to them, please let me know. I'm more than happy to do that. Again, just get the word out, kind of community, not carrier pigeons, not smoke signals, but word of mouth as much as possible during this time of quarantine and social no, they don't call it social distancing anymore. They want it to be physical distancing. Anyway, you know what I mean. Just let me know if people still would like that. Also, the pastoral care side is up and running. Flowers were delivered to our people on Rhoda for visitation for this Easter. And if anyone is self-isolating or ill at this time, please reach out to us so that we can be there for you. Whether that's simply through prayer over the phone or even prayer in general, communion over the phone, whatever it is, please reach out to us and let us know what your needs are at this time. Or if you know of someone and you know that they're struggling, please get their consent before you share their needs with us. The last notice that I have, it's not scary. I'm pausing to think of how to put this. We need to discuss something that in many cultures is taboo: money. The church, as you know, is on lockdown, and because of that, it's a strange time of tithing. Now, before I go any further, I want to say that it's not that much different from when we talk about tithing and offering in a normal Sunday worship, and that we have always wanted to assure people to give what they feel God is calling them to do, and to give faithfully according to what God's called them to do and within reason, and in a way that they feel comfortable with. So I know many people prefer the anonymity of blank church offertory envelopes. If you have those, please still use those and hang on to them, and then whenever we get back together, we'll collect them as is reasonable. Until then, if you are comfortable with giving digitally, I would encourage you to do so, because though we are not meeting in person, we still have to care for the ministry, the mission, and the maintenance of the church, not just through prayer, but financially. So for those of you who are comfortable giving digitally, I would consider going to the church website to look at how to do direct deposit. There's also Amazon.co.uk has a Smile account. So it's smile.amazon.co.uk. We're all doing more Amazon shipping at this moment. If you do that, then a portion of it goes to a charity that you can pick, and we're registered. There's also, and I'm still not sure quite how it works, but there is a PayPal account that you can attach to Facebook where you can donate to the church through Facebook. And again, we're only asking that which we've always asked, which is you give according to what God has laid on your heart. You give what is reasonable for you and your household at this time. We are not asking anything more than usual, except that you consider digital giving. And if not, that's cool. We will go back to tithing as usual whenever this ends and whatever our new norm looks like when this is all said and done. But on that note, I'd like you to consider not just tithing or almsgiving to our church, but also other charitable organizations at this time. There's a group called Soup Run that normally would set up on King Street in City Center to give out food, but they're not able to at this time. However, Sheffield City Council is allowing some charities to help with breakfast and evening meals provided to the homeless, such as the Archer Project, Ben Center, Victoria Halls, and St. Anne's. So all that is to say, at this time, even though we're at home, there's still those outside of our walls who have always needed our love and care. And so prayerfully consider how you can help out those organizations during this time. Finally, on that note, I would say, excuse me, hay fever. I promise it's just hay fever. St. Thomas Aquinas, 800 years ago, put it perfectly when he talked about the fact that almsgiving or tithing is not just financial. It's not just material. It's spiritual as well. And to that end, your prayers are alms. The two go hand in hand. To give financially or materially without giving in prayer doesn't quite reach the goal of helping one another out, of caring for one another as friends. But also praying without really asking yourself, how can I give financially or materially too, falls short as well. So all that is to say, not only consider at this time how to give to the church, to different organizations that you already support, financially, materially, but please, please pray at the same time. Almsgiving is both. So finally, last point of business is today we have a sermon from Peter Shepherd, and I'm looking forward to hearing it along with you guys. Sorry, once again, hay fever. Before we go to that, though, I like to call us to worship with a prayer from Tim Graves. I found online at the Liturgy Bites website. This is about a passage which is liturgical for today that is of Doubting Thomas. Doubting Thomas gets a bad rap because if you look in John 20, you see that he wasn't there when Jesus shows up, and he comes back and everyone's saying, oh, he's resurrected. And Thomas says, well, if I can put my hands in his side and in his hands, if I can touch his wounds, then I'll believe. And sometimes we look at him and think, oh, how could you doubt? Everyone in the room is saying it. I don't know, some pretty crazy things that happen. And even then, not just looking at Thomas and his doubt, I think what's important to remember is that Jesus fulfills that need for Thomas. Thomas has doubts and questions, and Jesus fulfills them. He shows up, he puts his hands in the wounds. And so that is part of this time in between Easter and Pentecost, that Jesus was with them for 40 days. And I'm sure that incident with Thomas was not the last time that Jesus had to go, right, one more time. I've only been talking to you guys for 3 years about this stuff, but let's talk about it again. So wherever you are, however you are in your faith journey right now, know that questions are fine, and that we have a God that provides for us not only physically and spiritually, but mentally. He answers our questions, and emotionally, he doesn't clamp down on us whenever we have our doubts. So let's call ourselves to worship now. We gather as people on a journey. We believe and we have doubts. We do good and we sin. We are imperfect humans and still beloved by God. Love and grace, hope and faith, these are the essence of the one we call God. We seek forgiveness and grace from God and from those we've harmed. Assured of that grace, we are ready to grow again. We yearn for a new way, a new perspective, and a clear path. Though we are full of trust and full of doubt, we are here. Speak to us, God. Continue creating us. Inspire our hearts. Enlighten our minds. Guide our actions. Amen. I pray that you have an amazing time of worship, that the word that Peter has prepared for you, or for us, ministers to you during this time. And I will see you again at the end of our time of worship for benediction.